full of surprises. I mean, as you all, we never imagined that you all will be here and I'll meet you and this thing. Who you meet is also unpredictable.
True.
All this is, I never came to mind about these books or anything. It just happens.
Happens.
So that's what being present and this is what's happening.
Good afternoon and welcome to a dialogue and a conversation with Professor Subhash Malik, known to all as Bhashiji. We are in Dr. Anjali Kapila's garden, and here I am with two well-known academics, and we plan to grill Bhashiji today. We plan to find out what goes on behind those dark glasses, what personality hides behind that beard, and what does he have to say to his friends, our viewers, the world at large. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Professor Subhash Malik. I am Vijayalakshmi Bose and I am a small cog in a vast machine. So what are some of the books you wrote in your early years in Shimla?
When I wrote Indian Civilization, the Formative Period, the study of archaeology as anthropology, which is talking about concepts which archaeologists and historians use, but they don't talk about the concepts. It's like in archaeology you think this is a cup, this is a dish, and descriptive. So I said, what's the point of that? Because in India you can dig anywhere and find something and write a report. I said that doesn't make much sense unless there's a socio-cultural background we can derive from that and connect it to Indian civilization. So that book is about that, and it's also about how different regions in India are connected to the ecological background. All the linguistic states that we have a background of environment like that. So they are natural, diverse situations. So I did some work on, just trying to find out, expose people that without going into the background and concept, or otherwise you're making statements. Red pottery people went to the black pottery people and black people went to the blue. I said, I don't know what that is all about and on what basis do you make that?
True.
And they're making statements on all kinds of theories which came from the West. So like ceramics, in the house you have many different kind of ceramic things, one for the guests, one for eating at home, so that's a socio-cultural thing. That doesn't represent a culture where he said, where did these cultures come from? But there are, different viewpoints on it, which I wanted, that students are not taught about it. And the notion of the past also.
This is one of your major contributions, where you stress on the context of an object, that it does not exist in isolation, and the interconnectedness of the various disciplines, like we categorize archaeology as archaeology and anthropology as anthropology and sociology. We sort of demark these disciplines, and you talk a lot about the integration of all these disciplines towards a holistic understanding that everything exists in a context, and the context becomes very important. I think that was that one of your major contributions to the earlier academic understanding of archaeology as anthropology?
Well, I was thinking about it like that because I went to excavations and who were assisting us, they could do very good excavations. So I said, what's the difference between them and me?
Very good point.
See, unless I have some hypothesis and all that behind it, otherwise this digging is very good, but what is the, as you say, what is the context behind it? So that context is always there. One has to look at it, which requires then archaeologists to think. And there is a major difference in the British setup. Archaeology is part of history. In America, archaeology is part of anthropology.
Okay.
So I had also been exposed to a lot of Indian civilization studies in Chicago.
Oh.
And so I was trying to interpret things in that manner, get people to think. And there was a lot of not good reviews. The most established archaeologists were very upset with me. They said, "You're an armchair archaeologist, you have to be concrete." But of course later on people have started understanding that the cultural context and it has to be connected to your own lives also.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to interject here and ask you that very early in life you were able to grasp abstract concepts, you had your own way of thinking, you were able to contribute. How much of it is part of your family background? You come from a very well-known family and a very intellectual and artistic family. Would you like to throw some light on that?
This is all in hindsight. I don't know. Things influence you in many ways, no? And things also influence you in some scars.
Yes.
Genetic memory also.
Yes, definitely.
So I can't say exactly yet. We were in the freedom movement. There was a lot of renaissance going on all over India, as you know. So everybody was involved in that renaissance thing, in culture and literature, and so much was happening all over India and in Bengal especially. So everybody was influenced in that. So things like literature and painting and dancing and music, which didn't exist in New Delhi at that time. So my mother and parents and all started all that. And my sister was on the stage in Regal at the age of 7, which nobody liked about it. Sending a girl for dancing in those days and music. So my mother encouraged that, and my brother was writing poetry, and he was working for M. Roy. And all these things were happening, and we had a whole lot of literature and people coming, and Aruna Asafali had to hide in our house. Yeah. All this was happening all the time, and I was seeing all that happening, not that I was involved in it in any way, but this was going on all the time, so it must have got into my head somewhere. And later on, in the beginning, I'm not sure what exactly, but this was going on. At that time there was a renaissance going on, and everybody was, because of the movement, these things were there, and this cultural renaissance was there. So that was there.
You also talk of yourself as a rebel. I think I've heard you say that often. It's very interesting, when you say that. So what are the images that come into one's mind when we're talking about a rebel, and how did that rebellion sort of also shape you? Taking a stand in many things.
No, rebel is, I don't know that word is rebel, like They also, people say, no, young generation is up to something. So I was also part of that young generation. I was wearing jeans, which nobody used to wear those days. Going to Shimla was not a good thing. It was a very
Yes.
bad thing.
Considered bad,
Very
yes.
bad thing. So, but I was doing that also. And like in the house, there was no radio. I said there should be a radio in the house. There's no phone in the house. I said, what kind of house? So people said, don't know what's happened to the young people. They want all this stuff. So seeing movies and being influenced by that is also there, being exposed to many things during those days. And listening to Western music, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Western light music.
Light music, yes.
So that radio was there and I'd be listening to Radio Ceylon.
Yes.
And doing my exam, listening to music. So it's kind of, people would not say, what's the matter with this boy? You know. So that influence is there. I mean, that is also there.
You were also the first student of the Gandhar Mahavidyalaya, which your mother set up. I mean, we believe that your mother set up many institutions in Delhi, and she played a very active role in the cultural life of the city. So I'm sure these early influences must have had a huge impact, because music, one has always heard you say, even in the now, that it's the food of the soul.
Yeah, well, that I went there, but you don't know. Boys would tease me those days that you're singing. What's wrong with you?
Okay.
After going there for 2 years, I stopped going. They said, you go and play cricket, don't sing. So that also happened.
Yes, you've done a lot of things that most men of your generation wouldn't do. Yes, you're right.
And in our early years, we lived in Calcutta. So we were very much influenced by that, went to Shantiniketan, and we had a teacher who would come and teach us music there. So there were all kinds of influences like that. And when we came to Delhi, we were partially living with a joint family with my Tayaji. But then my mother broke off from all that, and we came to live in New Delhi in 1938, which nobody would live in Connaught Circus in those days. She wanted to live her own life like that. And that was a big change. And it was called Raisina then, you know. It was the Raisina village.
Oh.
So everybody in old Delhi would say, Raisina chale gaye log to.
Oh.
Says नहीं था. So ये सब गांव है ना, गांव में.
Sure.
So Raisina में फिर आए, फिर ये new things were happening there also. So that itself was a break from the joint family system.
Right.
To do your own. And, I don't know, whatever, something was in, consciously I don't know what happened. And studies, I was just an ordinary student. Like those days, everybody said people should be doing engineering or be a doctor or go to the army. Well, I went to the first commission in army thing. I got failed because I was talking about music there. They said, ये नहीं चलेगा. Doctor ka, I took biology, and then I had to cut up frogs and cockroaches. That also I couldn't do. So I did botany honors, but then that was getting boring. Then my brother suggested do anthropology. It had to do with human culture and all, but that was very nice. That's what I did. And then archaeology got me interested. Then I went to London to work under very great people there, Gordon.
Gordon Child?
Yeah, Gordon Child.
Very famous.
And Wheeler was there, and So it gets you to think many things, you know. And in Baroda, Professor Subhash was there and we set up a new department there. And then when I wrote this book afterwards, then I said archaeology there should be thinking behind it. Archaeology is not about things. Archaeology is inquiry into the past. And what is the past? So it's kind of a philosophy. Actually, you know, all the academic disciplines from Greek have started from philosophy. Philosophy is the base of inquiry, and these are specializations after that. So this is philosophical inquiry into different things. So archaeology is also a philosophy. It has to be a philosophy because you're not understanding things, you're understanding what exactly is going on in terms of culture.
Yes, and that ties in with what you just said about the use of ceramics, for instance. You know, different kinds of ceramics for different households, different uses. So unless you understand the uses and the culture,
and
what's the point?
For India, it's important because, like, there are decorations on pottery.
Mm-hmm.
In India, then somebody who studied that, then the daughter who's learned paintings on this thing, when she gets married to another house, she takes those decorations in that house. This is how it spreads.
Oh.
Yeah. तो बहू यहाँ जाती है वो अपने घर से वो लेके जाती है वहाँ पर जाती है. So how culture change, one has to look into that. In India, at least till then, you could connect with what's going on. So that is the social aspect of everything. But that means you inquire into concepts. So then I got into study of concepts and what is a civilization and what is a culture. And that's how I moved on into these other things like...
Yeah, so there are 2 books you've written on civilization. 3 actually. So how would you put it chronologically?
Well, first is this first one, which has come out into many editions.
It has come into many editions, Indian
Archaeology
civilization.
and Anthropology.
And this talks about the formative period. This is where you were talking about from pure anthropology to civilization studies, yes. Yes.
So, then I wrote this book, Understanding Indian Civilization, a Framework of Enquiry. And there are many ways to inquire into. Anyway, start thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, they didn't think thinking was required. And this kind of thinking is not prevalent anywhere in the education system.
That's true.
That you think for yourself, inquire, question. What exactly are you doing? So even the notion of, I've written on this notion of history and prehistory. History is also a very recent phenomenon, study of history. Then history has also been called, when writing had started according to the West. So before writing is called prehistory.
Yeah.
Which is also a Western notion. In India, things travel by oral tradition.
Absolutely.
Doesn't have to be writing.
Yeah.
And this division also I questioned. I said, this is not all right.
Which book was this?
Both these books.
Both these books are that.
So you see, a lot of work that you do have come from a particular cultural concept, which is Western. In India, we've given so much stress in Indian culture continues into oral traditions only.
That's
So a lot of oral traditions why things continue like that, through memory,
right.
not by writing. See, the Vedas were written only in the 14th century. They were never written. So from a Western viewpoint, it's not understandable.
It is not understandable. I'd like to ask you about this book. It's called Modern Civilization, A Crisis of Fragmentation. This sounds very contemporary, and yet you wrote it when? If you first wrote it in which year?
1989.
1989, and yet we are a very fragmented society even today. So would you like to talk a little bit about this?
The thing is, yeah, as you go out into your concepts, you have to examine yourself. What is the subject, for example? If I am the subject, I am looking at the world. What is the subject? Nobody talks about the subject.
Your mind.
No? Are you following me?
Yes, nobody talks about the subject. And Anjali said, who am I?
No, I'm supposed to be subject, I'm supposed to know the world, but what is the subject? What is the identity of the subject? You say, me, I'm Subhash Malik, and that's my identity. But where did that identity come from? So one has to examine all those things. For example, the name was given to me.
Yes.
I'm told this name was given to me. My name was given Subhash after Netaji. So you have a background like that, then whole memory and all that is there involved in it. There's a social, cultural memory involved in your name. There's a long history of the cultural background where you get your name from. And your family also.
Yeah, for instance, my name Vijay Lakshmi. A lot of people say I'm South Indian. And then I have to tell them that no, Vijay Lakshmi Pandit was also Vijay Lakshmi. And that's where I get my name from. So yes, you're right.
So, as in archaeology, anthropology, I was doing in this also. I said, yeah, one asked a question, then I started reading many things. And Raman Maharishi and Nityanand and Krishnamurti. Well, it's an exploration and to find out. This means going into areas which I'd never thought about, because you thought this is all belongs to religion. And institutionalized religion, which in the beginning one was not interested in really. So this takes you into conceptual thing which a lot of core spiritual people who examine. So I had to go into all that to find out who's this subject. So similarly, you have a body. But I did not create the body. Okay? Difficult. Yeah. A body was born.
Right.
See, this body was born in Old Delhi, in some place, and this body had a twin. So the twin died, and this body was weak, it survived. So that body which I say is mine is just a statement. I did not create it. Because one is told you are this body, and one is told you are this name from childhood. You are conditioned to believe this is who you are.
Okay. Yes.
It's a conditioning, no? You have to. Somebody keeps telling the children don't know that. They are quite free till they start telling you and they start calling you a name and then this thing and then this is what you have to do and this is what you don't have to do and this is who you are. And the child says, okay, that's what I am. So in that cultural context, you have a name and a form. which is not created by you or me. I mean, it's there in the relative sense, but it's not whether it's there exactly or not. So these kind of things happen, and then you are governed by language and thought. Thought is what creates all this. There's a thought about it. No, there's a thought in the head about society and culture, which has been telling you this is what it is. I don't know if I'm getting through.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
I think in your conversations and your dialogues with young people and with a lot of us, you have given a lot of emphasis on socio-cultural conditioning, and that the concepts are created by that conditioning. And the way we view the world, like sometimes you use the metaphor of wearing rose-colored glasses and you see the world. So I think, would you like to say something about that? Because we need to understand how socio-cultural conditioning really determines a lot of who we become and who we are, or who we think we are.
Yeah, but it's all socio-cultural conditioning, no? There's a cultural context in which each one of us lives. That is projected. You look at the world not directly, you look at the world through a filter of your cultural context.
Very good.
You just to know, there's nothing wrong with it, but to know, normally one thinks I'm seeing the world directly.
Right. But you're actually seeing it through prism. Seeing through prism.
Yeah, it's always like that. In communication also, when we communicate, if I'm listening to you, I'm interpreting what you're saying.
Right.
And you're interpreting what I'm saying. So what happens to communication?
There's no communication.
There's no communication. Actual communication is not that. Then sometimes what's behind you is being communicated. And you are using words and language, saying this is what's happening, saying something but meaning something else. So you're also living in a schizophrenic world.
Yes.
So that's the nature of thought. And we're trying to create something in the world, but till all these things are clear, nothing can happen. The subject is not clear, and the subject is confused, you produce a confused world. Everybody's talking about love and peace. If in this instrument is not having it, can I give to the world something I don't have? That's not possible. So people, all the world doesn't have it, they were living in thoughts, they don't have love and peace, but they want to create love and peace. That's impossible. You cannot have love. Cannot, only transformed people can transform the world.
Yeah.
Not the little individual self. But first you have to know, if you have a computer, you want to see how that works. If you don't even know how this computer works. Somebody presses a button, you get angry. Somebody presses a button, you start laughing. Somebody presses a button, you get depressed. I mean, what kind of, that means we are robots. Huh? I don't know. You want to say something on that?
Yeah, because what is very interesting is that your movement within your academic life, from archaeology, anthropology, looking at history, you have a very interesting notion of looking at history, and then sociology, so all the interrelatedness you established. Then you started focusing on understanding who you are, the subject, through a process of self-inquiry. I think there was a whole movement which is very evident in your work, and your later work shifted to the understanding the human mind and thought, and you've written so much on the nature of thought, on holism and thought. So why did the thought become so integral to your understanding of civilization, and you sort of linked it to the crisis and the fragmentation that is inherent in the human mind? I think your later work is very reflective of that journey that you took. And was there any other influence of, say, of a spiritual order or any personal things, events that happened in your life that made you move towards this kind of an understanding, or it was just an organic growth that led to that?
That I don't know like that, but I said it's an inquiry. So even in archaeology, it's all an inquiry. You ask questions and find out, then you go on asking questions, then you have to go deeper into everything. So it involves a whole lot of inquiry which keeps coming. I don't know how to put it in this head or my head or wherever it's coming from. It says find out for yourself where this is happening. That's why I went around to Ram Maharishi's ashram. I went to Nisargadatta also, looked for him, and went to Pondicherry also, went to so many places. Said I must find out for myself. Earlier on I would dismiss all this, no, I said then inquiry means don't dismiss, go and find out with a clean slate what's going on.
You also went to the Ramakrishna mission. How did that influence you in any way? Understanding Ramakrishna or what he said, that influence?
Well, I was reading all these other books, then I read Ramakrishna also. In the beginning I was resisting it. Anjali took me there.
Oh.
So I said, let me see what you are going to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I come from an RS Samaji background.
Okay.
So we said worshipping, what do you call them? Icons?
Idols or icons.
Idols is not on. And then I said, you say you are a scientist, then you must examine something without any prejudice. Go there and find out for yourself. So Ramakrishna explained things very simply, which I found it very simple. Something you were saying very simply, and like he says, there is a needle which is covered by mud. So there is a magnet there. Then how does it get there? You remove the mud, it will go there. Which means clean yourself first, then whatever the other aspect, the larger aspect is, will come to you. But in very simple terms, that I understood, which in theoretical, philosophical things will take a long time to explain, do this, do that. So he was, and he also said that be open to many things. Like in a temple, people want to come from anywhere, any door or top, let people come from anywhere. Doesn't matter coming from one. So that sounded very nice, that every usually institution say do this only and nothing else. Or you come from the main gate only, that's the only thing. Here he said it's open to everything. You have to find out for yourself. And it sounded very simple, and so then out of all this, I got initiated there also. Something clicked because there's nothing forced there. I went to the ashram and would be sitting for the meditation center, but there is no pressure, you must sit there and do this. Sit if you like, you don't want to sit, you go anywhere you like. So that simplicity of the way he explains it simply, it is similar to many other people. But I also got interested in Krishnamurti because most people have talked about thought. But he goes very deeply into thought. The thought is what is causing all the problems. Your language and your words, and we are in terms of evolution, man has used thought very nicely in the beginning, because thought talks about past and future. But in evolutionary terms, thought has taken over. You and I take our identity from thoughts. But thought is a concept. This is a wrong notion that your identity is your thought. Thought is a subsystem. And thought is not created by me or you. This is also a wrong notion. We don't know. This is an instrument which is a receiver and transmitter. So you're getting thoughts from everywhere. What is the idea of saying this is my thought? So thought has taken over as an abstraction using the body. So although everybody says body is very important, but nobody takes care of the body. And because of abstract thought, we are killing each other and want to kill ourselves also. But you keep saying body is very important. It's very strange. So thought actually is using the body, and thought says, as we often say personally also, I want to kill myself. Then kill people. I'll take over another body. On the other hand, you say body is very important. So thought is a 10% of the brain, which is not fully functional of the brain. So that's what's happened if you got stuck in a specialization. And any species which specializes in partially of its thing will be extinct. And this is exactly what's happening.
To the human.
No, we're not treating plants, animals, everything as beings.
Yeah, very important.
So what's happened psychologically, all of us are struggling to become something. And you want to become something because you think you're not all right. Each one of us psychologically suffers from a notion that I am not all right, then I have to become something and get somewhere. You don't have to do that. Because thought is also one sentence after the other. So thought is linear. Linear time. Linear time is what's governing our functioning. Past, present and future. Which is also abstract. It's a concept, no? Concept. Just to know there's a concept. Yeah, everything that we talk about and do is a concept. It's not an experience. So we are living in terms of, the me is always living in terms of what happened yesterday and what will happen tomorrow. And in that process, thought is always about yesterday and tomorrow.
Never about now.
No, but then you are absent to life. You're not present to life. Life is this moment only. All the talking is about
Past.
a concept. It's like a tennis or cricket match, there's a commentary going on. Commentary is very interesting. Commentary is not the match. So we have identified with the commentary all the time and missed out on experiencing life, experiencing as a being. So we made abstracts of animals, plants, they are all beings. When I going to understand there's being, but it's all coming from a psychologically feeling not all right. That's why one wants to become something, and society is teaching you have to become something, because society is also in comparison telling you're not all right. Your sister is better than you, or somebody else is better than you, or you're worse than it. All the time it's drilled into your head like this. So one has to be aware of that. Just be aware. and be present and experience life. Talking about life is not life.
We often talk a lot about being the watcher or the witness of your thoughts. I think you have stressed a lot about, not identifying with your thoughts, but being a witness to that. And I think somewhere in our conversation, we are moving towards that thought is always about the past or the future, and we are never present. So this has been one of your very important points for a dialogue or a conversation, even for the younger people and for all of us, is to, be in the now. You talk a lot about that. Would you like to say something about being in the now and how significant it is for our lives?
Well, life is in the now only. Thought is linear, and that's an abstraction. So all talking is about yesterday's and tomorrow's, isn't it? Is it being present? Not being present. And past and future called anxiety, because you're also making comparisons to things. Just to be aware of. Aware means paying attention. Being present to see. Children don't know anything, they are present.
Yeah.
And they are playful. And they are inquiring. And they are exploring. As you get conditioned, you get fixed in some notions. You want to live life, experience, nothing great, experience moment to moment what's going on at the moment. By being aware, by being present. I give the analogy of driving a car. You drive a car, you have to be present. Right? You cannot be distracted by people on the road or everything. And the rear view mirror is a reference point.
That's a beautiful solution.
Normally what we are doing, we are living in the past.
Yes.
I have a past, but I don't live there. See, there is movement of thought prevents you from being present. Movement of thought is always about past and future. It's always about could have been and should have been. So with language and speech, we are stuck at that level. And the me is identifying with that. Not being present suggests that I have to do something in order to be present, or in order to be, I have to keep becoming something. And we are taught that from childhood. You are this, now you have to become something like this. And it put in your head. There's a chap sitting in your head. The personality is formed by the time you are 7, which Gurdjieff calls a little professor in your head. That professor is always passing judgments and evaluation. This is not right, that's not right, you didn't do right, something is okay, I have to do okay. All the time is telling you. So we do things in order to be all right, in order to become something. That's a movement of thought. Movement of thought also creates time. One has to see this. That one is caught in this condition in modern civilization. Traditional societies maybe not, but thought has taken over so much that we are, like in language, one is saying that you are saying just now, my head and my thought. My thought itself is saying this is me. The me is thought, and thought is creating a me and is not me also. So there's a conversation in the head going on all the time, no? You know there's a conversation going on in the head, and you say that's my head. It's not your head, there's a conversation in the head. There's a commentary going on. To say it's me, it's mine, itself is an error if you want to examine it. On what basis do you say it's mine? Anyway, being thought is always linear, and linear time But the world is cyclical and goes round and round. There is nothing linear. So it's the movement of thought that making us believe that there's linear time, there's yesterday's and today's with something like that. So the first error is that we've been told you're this body, then you're this name. I did not give this name, I did not even create this body. Then there's a thought about it. To know that it's a thought, everything we make it personally. If we start making things personally, then there's no person there. Person is a mask only, set up by society. So there are several selves, no? One would say another act and a story in every different context. In front of your parents, you put on a different story. In front of your friend, you put on a different story. In front of your lover, you put on a different story. In front of children, you put on a different story. So we are putting on different acts and stories in different contexts. So there are so many selves, but they are only cultural selves. Experiencing, so in that process we stopped experiencing life. So one has to be aware of it. I said then you have to be aware like you're being attentive to driving a car. Just be present, because whatever is happening, I'm not the creator of that. It's happening. In the whole universe, things are happening. Things come into existence and disappear also. So that being aware, awareness is a very, it's an energy. Like consciousness is an energy. Whatever you focus on will grow. You focus on rubbish, rubbish will grow. You focus on something nice, that will grow. It's an actual energy. So if you focus on rubbish thoughts, they'll grow. So it's about cleaning the head. Like you clean yourself every day, but none of us are taught to clean the head. So every day, by being aware and not being caught by thoughts, allows this instrument to function better. Without awareness, it's not. Without awareness, we are all living unconscious lives.
So this is how you get to deal with the professor in your head.
I see the language, very important language. Your head, no, there's nothing mine.
Okay, the professor in the head.
Professor in the
There's a
head.
professor in the head. I'm watching it, I'm not following what it says. You use thought as an instrument, it's a subsystem. It's not the main system. And that's why mankind is using only 10% of their head. You're not using the totality. The totality is used when people are creative. Einstein said, when my head is empty, things come to me. Not when it's full. So whatever it is, your insight is coming from, it's like this room. If it's full of stuff, sunlight won't come in. So if the head is full of rubbish, nothing will come in, because the universe is vast. So allow yourself, without this commentary, and learn to experience life by just being present. It's as simple as that. That's what I give an analogy about the children. Children are just present, they're happy with whatever is. Grown-ups are not happy with anything. ऐसा होना चाहिए था, वैसा होना चाहिए, ऐसे क्या होना चाहिए, ऐसा है, which means a non-acceptance of your psychological self, which we throughout the world have been taught that you're not all right, there's something defective in you. So we do things in order to prove I'm all right. So we never do things for its own sake, for the sake of love, for doing something. Same thing, we're not present to the other for its own sake. I'm just present to you. But soon it institutionalizes, then I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at an image and I want that image to be different. So the images are having a conversation. So one is seeing the world in terms of, as you said, rose-colored glasses or dark glasses or whatever else. So it will always look different. So to be aware of that, then one is, the problem is not with the world, problem is the glasses you're wearing.
Remove the glasses.
Well, remove the glasses means eyes don't see anything. You know that? Eyes do not see. What's behind it, see. Like there's a camera. Camera doesn't see. The person behind the camera sees. Okay? Camera does nothing. So these eyes and your sense organs do nothing. It's one in your head which is interpreting and saying this is happening. And you're doing things in terms of memory all the time. And memory is a dead. Even people are eating food out of memory. So you're never experiencing eating food. You don't look disappointed. I had this Rashagulla 20 years ago, it was beautiful. I'm still having the memory of that and I'm comparing having it now also.
Yes.
So I'm eating memories. You are living life memories. Just to, if you start being aware, then maybe some other possibility is there. So like in a computer, there's so much memory, it's getting overloaded. You have to delete it.
Yeah.
Otherwise the computer will crash. And this is what's happened, it's crashing. You just let go in thought. Thought will go on saying that, you have to do nothing about it. Because one thought is there, then there's another thought says I have to do something. They are the same. There are not, it's the same thought in another guy. This guy. So just to be aware, one is of there's no formulas in it. When, say you go to the mountains, or one is singing, there are no thoughts. When you go to sleep for 6 hours, there are no thoughts, and you're very happy about it. You may not even get up. You might die even. Who cares? I want to sleep. Sleep meaning no thoughts. And the body is also telling you, unless you go out of the way, I cannot rejuvenate the body.
Yes, that's
So
it.
that's the sleepism. No, and in the morning you're so conditioned, again thought starts. And you wait till the evening to stop the thoughts. And people take to drink and all kinds of things. Why? I want to stop thoughts. I want to experience life. So all day you're thinking, then you're doing things to stop it. You understand? But don't get into this. So, when you're in a creative mood or in some state where you're just present, you're very happy, and if you're in a thoughtless state, when you go to sleep, you're very happy, How come? It's so obvious, you just be present. So this is you have to decondition by deleting all this rubbish stuff. First be aware there's rubbish. Then there's something else that will happen or not happen. But you have to keep cleaning it. But that me as thought is very dominant. It will struggle, it will create problems. And that thought, when thought has to do something, in order to continue its present, thought as me. If there is a state of no thought, then thought which has been controlling one's life says, "Abhi mera kya hoga?" तो कुछ खुराफात करनी चाहिए. So everybody is on that track. कोई ज़रूरत नहीं कुछ करने की. Just be present. But that's how creativity happens like that, because you are in an unknown territory. If you want to continue into the known territory, Because if you have an experience, what happens? You connect it to what you already know. So all new experiences, you say recognize. If you recognize it, you are seeing what you already know and what is happening. You're not experiencing anything then. You don't know. Cannot come from that state. Right? The me is not going to say that. So the not knowing, then something else happens. What happens is we are dominated by the left brain all the time, and not the right brain, which is the intuitive brain. When something will appear and happen. Are you ready for that? That is to live in unpredictability, uncertainty for some time, not in everyday life, but in some time one has to be in that kind of way. Actually, one doesn't know anything. One is just making a story. Because the universe is immense. How can one know anything? Can only know when the me is not there. If there is something to know. So, actually there is only the now. There is nothing else. There is no time also. This is all we made up. Then, what does one do next? Nothing. Then the brain starts functioning and deals with it. It knows how to deal with it.
Talk so much about creativity.
Yes.
Maybe it's time to.
I was waiting, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow. I have evidence to show that Professor Subhash Malik, our Bhashiji, is a chupa ruska. And I have it on the best advice because at the release function of this book, his sister, Professor Vatsayan, Kapila Vatsayan ji, said she did not know that Subhash drew. So we'd like now to reveal this to the world and our viewers and ask you about the reason why you call this moments of being. Has it got anything to do with what we were talking about being in the now,
Yeah.
about being?
Yeah. Being is all that there is. B-E. Being, just being. You are the being. You are not the commentary and the words behind it. You have to be silent. So this book is about Sukrita's poems and my painting, which I did long ago. But in painting, there are no thoughts. Things just happen. That's what I want to say. In life, things are happening. Are you willing to be with what's happening? Secondarily, the thought says, I am doing it, which is a secondary statement. It's a commentary, it's not the actual. All creativity happens. This is also a happening. If you ask me, how do you do it, what came to you? Nothing came to my head, I was just enjoying it.
Yes, I would like to. We talked about Bhashiji's brother, and as I open this, there is a poem called The Moment. I think it's from yes, Dr. Keshav Malik's poem, and I would like to read 4 lines. The moment. And though this ticking moment be instantaneously out of sight, soon as born, die, all we know is its illusion, the moment, in a moment, forgotten. And yet, it is it we then mourn, for we are of the very stuff of the moment, breaking against the moment, never before or after. So here too, I think he's talking about...
Yeah, amazing guys.
The moment.
He's putting all this very beautifully in his poetry. Yeah.
So, you said that the colors and the words come together creatively as a celebration of life. So, what do you think these, and I know Anjali curated this, she edited and put this book together, so maybe you both would like to tell us a little bit about the poems, a particular painting maybe that you would like to point us to, or talk about the way the book was put together, because this is a very unique publication. It's not often that you see.
Things happen. I don't know how they happen. I had these old paintings and I didn't know what to do with them. I was cleaning the house and I said, what should I do with this painting and throw away? And then I said, I'll show it to a few friends of mine. Wonder what they'll say. So there's Sukrita and there's Anjali and they said, beautiful. I said, what's wrong with them? I said, they're beautiful paintings. So they got resurrected. They said, and they are the ones who then went around arranging for an exhibition also. Must be displayed, mounted and everything, curating and everything. It just happened. I have no, painting. I do some other painting, but then they were just lying there, and suddenly after 30 years, this thing opened up, and Sukrita thought I had poems like this. We said we'll have something on, because all creative things just happen. Call them like that, I don't know. I wasn't thinking I'm going to create anything. I was just having fun, fooling around with paint and listening to music. Music and poetry and painting are amazing. They come from your right brain. You're not thinking about it. So if you do things which you just enjoy, that's it. There's nothing extraordinary. To be ordinary is to be extraordinary. Trying to be extraordinary is to be ordinary.
Wonderful. Very well put.
So enjoy the moment of whatever is, and life is like that. We think life is moment to moment. It's momentary. That's actual, no? And the COVID thing has taught us that this is actual like that only. We talked about uncertainty, unpredictability theoretically. But this COVID has taught us things are unpredictable, things are uncertain. So
Absolutely.
You better be happy with what you have.
And this also, as you're saying, Dr. Sukrita Paul Kumar is a well-known author, a well-known poet. And I think you just sat together, and out of your efforts was born this very beautiful publication.
Well, I don't know what things happen, you see.
I think one of the most beautiful things in this book is, to put together a poem and the essence of the poem as it resonates with the painting. I think that's where, like when you asked me, how did you put this together, while the creative process created the painting and Sukrita's poems was already written. But to bring these two together was, left to me to match them. And as I was going through her 10 volumes of poems and paintings, somehow they just kept coming together. It was almost as if, the painting was made for the words, or the words were written for the painting. And this coming together created this beautiful book, and the designer of this book, Devesh, the way he used the colors and the subtleties that have created this volume, it is indeed a piece of art.
Yeah.
Really.
Before I go on, I have another insight about this book. I'd like to share with our viewers one of my favorites, and this is the tree. And Sukrita writes, trees are yogis, standing erect on their roots, exuding an aura of unrelatedness. Each one is one and content. So this is really operating at two levels, so to speak. What you are talking about, being integral, letting things happen, not overthinking. And this, I think, also resonates with your love of the mountains. You have a lovely little house perched on a cliff on a mountain. Anjali has spent 15 years working in the mountains. So I think somewhere there are a lot of trees, a lot of mountains in this book. And clouds as well, yes. You're very close to the clouds as well in your mountain retreat. And you spoke about wanting to go back at the beginning of this dialogue when you said Baroda didn't sit well with you. You went back to the mountains. So somewhere there is nature and mountains. And how does that tie up with your core philosophy of being in the now, being in the moment, being with nature?
It doesn't really. If you're with nature, your thoughts slow down or not. If you're with nature, you're with river, you're with oceans, you're in the mountains, and when you're in Himalayas, all the chatterbox in the Delhi disappears.
Yes.
And you're just present there.
Yes.
And quite happy in the silence.
Absolutely.
I don't know, it just happens, you don't do anything about it. And there's being with nature and being with space itself is therapy for the head. And one forgets everything that you think was so important, except being in the shadow of the Himalayas. Or nature. So that's one other thing. Modern civilization, urban civilization has cut itself from its roots, which is nature.
True.
And just being present like that. So this thing also happened like that, like Anjali and I think you were there and Sukrita was there and one or two other people. We worked so smoothly without, I don't know, there was no effort or anything, and everybody was enjoying it.
Absolutely.
How does that happen? I mean, there was no trying to become something. We were, and the editor, what's his name?
The designer,
Devesh and Divya.
The publisher.
Publisher, Divya.
They were all sitting here, nobody was imposing anything on each other, and we were having a dialogue for doing this.
Sure.
We were.
I think Shumita was integral to this. You have to give us some credit.
Yes.
She's the one who actually put it together.
Yes, she put it together.
Everything.
Definitely.
Shumita.
And,
Shumita.
all that. What I'm saying is everything went so smoothly without nobody imposing anything that I'm a big professor and I'm a poet and I'll do whatever. We were discussing like normally and it just happened. I don't know how to keep saying everything is just happening. It was not pre-planned, it just came. After everything just, like this exhibition just happened. I had no mind of anything. So I think one's whole life things are happening. Because there are millions of variables involved in the universe, which is doing all this. What I know, I may know a million things, but that's still not sufficient. And that's not the cause of it. I don't know what the cause of it is. It's just happening. Like what's happening just now is also happening. How did that happen? I never knew this is going to happen. Nor did you know. It just happened. And so some factors come together to bring something into existence. And we don't know that. And so one's life is also like that. A lot of things happened to you in my personal life. won't go into detail, but those personal lives also one has to go through. So things are up and down all the time, and up and down a lot of time because one is not conscious. And so to be aware and to be present is to live life.
Wonderful.
That's all there is to it. There's nothing else. If people, but we're so pressurized to do something. We come from a notion of if you do something and you have something, you will get to be the being. No, that's rubbish. You are already the being. Coming from being, you do and have things.
Wonderful, really.
So you have a formula of be, do, have, not have, do, be.
Be, do, have,
Yeah.
not have, do, be.
Yes.
The world teaches you have this, you do this, you do this, then you will become the being. Rubbish, you come from being. That's love. That's all. There's nothing more to do. You do whatever you want to do, but come from this state. Because psychologically, we are all taught throughout the world, I've dealt with students who feel there's something wrong with me. That's a fundamental thing. Something is wrong, so I have to do something and have something to be all right. But this is an endless game. Finish school? No. Finish college? No. Then get a job? No. Then get married? No. Then have children? No. Then have grandchildren? No. Then one day you will be happy. At that time you'll be dead. You know there are 8 days in a week?
7 last I counted.
Yeah. The 8th day is one day. One day I will do this, I will become this. Rubbish, there's no one day. It will never happen.
So there we have the quintessential Bhashiji. A fund of wisdom, a fount of wisdom, a riot, and a role model for all of us. Thank you very much, Bhashiji. Thank you very much, Bhashiji. Thank you very much, Anjali. Why did we record this? To give you a flavor of what happens and what happened during the lockdown in drawing rooms when people were chewing their toenails and wondering, will this ever end? We were in the now. Thank you for being with us. Vijayalakshmi signing off.
Thank you, Mayank.
Thank you, Mayank.
The credits go to Mayank, who's behind the camera, for putting this idea forward, to Anjali for the venue and for all the ideas that went behind the interview, and the integral, one and only Bhashiji.